And we're live. Welcome back for our weekly episode of the Electrek Podcast. As usual, I'm Fred, your host, and I'm joined by Seth Wintrow. How you doing, Seth?
Good, Fred. How are you?
I'm doing great. This week we have a bit of a slower week for news for electric vehicle news. I think, especially after last week and the earnings and that always generate a lot of news for us. But this week we still have a few interesting things that came out. When it comes to Tesla, I think one interesting tidbits on information that actually one of our readers pointed out to us that actually came out from Elon Musk CEO compensation package that we reported on a few weeks ago. And now the board submitted it to the shareholders to vote on. So I know you still have like a one share set. What way are you voting for the CEO compensation package?
Yes, I have one share, and that is not because I want to make money on my reporting. So it is because I want to get all the shareholder information for news
Well,
purposes.
you still get a vote with that shares. It's one share, one vote.
Elon can have whatever he wants, really.
Yeah, he can have his multi-billion dollars package. Yeah. So and in the comment section of the few articles that we wrote about it, I think most people were pretty open to it since it's completely 100% dependent on shareholder value added to the company. So it makes
Right.
a lot of sense.
Elon doesn't make money unless shareholders make money.
But if
And
shareholders makes money, he makes a lot of money. I mean, 1% per milestone. That's a lot of money. But his last CEO conventional plan that was first introduced in 2012, and it's now being retired, was also very generous, and it was also based on milestone, but different milestones, more related to products and production goals and stuff like that. And one of those goals was the aggregate the production of 300,000 Tesla vehicles. And with the new proxy statement for the new compensation plan, they disclosed that in between Tesla releasing their fourth quarter results, so December 31st, and the time that the proxy were submitted, which is September 7th, which is also the earnings for quarter being released. They achieved that goal, so it wasn't achieved before, and we calculated that Tesla delivered just over 286,000 cars at the end of last quarter. Excuse me.
right, and that kind of goes into our Tesla hitting 300,000 vehicles this quarter.
Yeah, so at some point this quarter, Tesla delivered 300,000 vehicles. So we still have a good idea of how many. Indirectly give us an idea of how many vehicles Tesla delivered during the quarter. We didn't include the Roadster. I'm pretty sure the Roadster are included in that total number, so that'd be more than 286,000, closer to 288, 289,000 vehicles. So Tesla probably already delivered in the first month of the quarter, first like 6 weeks of the quarter, about 10,000 to 14,000 vehicles. And that includes the Model 3, of course. So Model 3 helped Tesla reach that new milestone. And I think it's an interesting milestone because just if you look maybe just 3-4 years back, how many people thought that Tesla would be able to get there? I don't think many people.
Yeah, well, it's always like I still don't understand the naysayers because I mean we're at like 9/10 of the way to the culmination of the master plan, and there's still people who are like, well, this Elon Musk has done, in Tesla, it's not just Elon obviously, but they've done 9/10 of what the master plan was, and clearly not as quickly as they had hoped. They didn't hit every milestone on time, but they've been hitting milestones, and it's just funny to me, like, oh well, they said they couldn't build the Roadster, and the Roadster wouldn't be able to, it'd be a flop, and then they wouldn't be able to do the Model S, and the Model S would be a flop, and now it's Model S and X are like the number one luxury cars.
In their segments.
Yeah, in their segments, and it's perplexing. Like you don't think that he can make this like last, like what seemed like there's still 400,000 people waiting. Like
Mm.
you don't think that they can figure out, you know, whatever bottlenecks and
the
slowdowns are happening in the
Yeah, the only thing where I give credit to, well, not really credit, but I think there's reason to have doubts when it comes to the naysayers' argument for Tesla, like repeating the magic formula for one vehicle to another, is the price.
right.
So you're going to an example, the Model S that you bought back like 5 years ago was the 40 kilowatt hours Model S. So that Model S like gave reason to Elon Musk, like it was reaching his $50,000 goal for a price tag for the Model S, but they ended up discontinuing the car. I don't know, months into production, just a few months into
Yeah,
production.
actually, not even so. They never made a 40 kilowatt hour Model S.
Yeah, yeah, that was the
They
other
made
thing.
a 60 kilowatt hour one, and then they decided that they were going to sell it for 40 and software limit my access to the battery until I paid another, you know, so much money. But you
Yeah,
know, it's kind of interesting because like that car is actually cheaper than, or it's the same price as the Model 3 that they're selling
yeah,
today.
yeah. So that was my point. So right now, Tesla still didn't officially achieve that $35,000 price tag for the Model S, for the Model 3, excuse me.
And
And
it doesn't look like they will this year.
yeah, that's the thing too. So we talked about that last week, but since we're talking about naysayers and their arguments, I think that's something that at least until Tesla does achieve that goal, and I think they will at some point, because that's the number one selling point of the Model 3. The Model S, even at $50,000, wasn't the point of the Model S to have like a cheap vehicle, not even cheap, but just like reasonable price. It was to have just the best sedan, mid luxury sedan possible, and they did that. There's no doubt.
Yeah,
But the Model
actually, we should
3,
also note that. So, made a little mistake there. I said that it's the same price. It was actually 5750, and then after the federal tax credit, it was 49,000, or you know, it's
okay,
5700.
yeah,
So it's not the exact same price, but it's pretty close.
pretty close, yeah. And well, yeah, the current model, the cheapest you can buy the Model 3 right now is what, is 49,000.
Yeah, 49,000 if you get the black base model with
Black,
just the
play
nine thousand
steel,
dollar extra battery and the $5,000 glass roof
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
stuff.
But yeah, so until Tesla does achieve that price, and the Model 3, that's the selling point. That's the price tag was the very important part of the plan, when it wasn't really the case with the Model S. But nonetheless, 300,000 aggregate production, I think, is impressive. It's something to celebrate for Tesla, I think, and that's why it's weird. They don't announce that stuff. Like we had to, like a reader had to point out the proxy, and I had to look at the proxy, and Tesla just doesn't. We made, well, while I gave the example of Nissan with the Leaf. They sent out a ton of press release just a few months ago when they achieved that. So I think that's interesting, but just a fun tidbits of information.
I'm sure they'll do something at 500,000, you know, whenever that happens, late this year, early next year, or whatever.
Yeah, and that's the interesting too. The rate at which they are increasing is important. So the next 200,000 vehicles is going to come a lot sooner, probably next year, if you believe Tesla's production goals.
Yeah, you know, that kind of takes us off a side note there. Bloomberg this week released a kind of a tool for estimating Tesla Model 3 production. And we had talked about it briefly on Slack, but it doesn't seem to be terribly accurate in terms of calculating. I mean, it's just based on VIN numbers, and
Yeah,
there's a lot of questions about, you know, how does
yeah,
Tesla allocate its VIN numbers?
yeah. I didn't like it because they said that there was two different methods, but at the end of the day, they were really reliant on the VIN numbers. And when I think they changed that tool. They changed the way that they calculated, like a day into releasing it or something like that. But when they first released it was like 7,300 vehicle produced or something like that. but I'm not sure that makes sense at the time because they were basing that on the number of VNs released, well, the actual number that the VNs were produced, and at that point, yes, there were VNs in the 6,000 that were spotted or customers released them, but Tesla is also still producing today VNs in the 4,000s. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to try to figure that out. I think it's a good tool, like in mid production. Like right now, if you look at the VINs of the Model S and X, it makes a lot of sense. Like you can keep tracking and reduce a few thousands depending on how they make the jump and everything. But very early in the production process right now, uh, when Tesla, for example, registers new VINs with Natchta, that makes sense because that means if they register a huge batch, that means they're preparing to produce probably a bigger batch of Model 3. But other than that, I don't think it's you shouldn't put money on that. In my
Yeah,
opinion.
and I kind of got a feeling that when they changed it a few days in, they probably got something from Tesla PR saying, you know, or
Yeah, that's not impossible. That's not
yeah,
impossible. Yeah, because they reduced the production rate. Like not only they were um, not only they were estimating the total production delivered, but they were trying to estimate to use that to extrapolate to the current production rate per week. And they were over 1,000 when they released the tool, and a day later they reduced that to under 1,000. So not sure
yeah.
what.
I mean, it's a guess at best. So
Yeah, yeah. One thing that was interesting too this week that we started to have a better understanding of the depth of the priority that the current Tesla owner are getting for the Model 3. Um, we published an article with the headline, "You can get a Model 3 in weeks if you're a Tesla owner in the US," and that's pretty much what we learned this week. So Tesla always said that they were giving priority to Model S and X owners, Roadster owners too, actually, and but it wasn't exactly clear just how far that priority goes because there's still like, for example, the first day that Tesla took reservation for the Model 3, over 100,000 people reserved the car. So many people thought that the owners that were registering that day, yeah, they get priority over the non-owners. But then someone reserving this month, did he still get priority if they're a owner versus the person that has been that placed a $1,000 deposit 2 years ago and doesn't have a Model S and X or a Roadster? And the answer to that is yes, they do get priority because Tesla owners that are putting a reservation right now are getting an invite to configure if they are in the US, because deliveries are still limited to the US, but they're getting an invitation in the very next batch of invitation that comes out. And another batch came out this week, and that's how we figured that out because a few owners let us know that they were getting those invitations based on a reservation that was done only days or weeks ago at best. And I don't know if you look at the comments on that article, but the feedback was really mixed. Like a lot of people do agree with the fact that yeah, the Model 3 wouldn't exist without Model S and X buyers. So Tesla makes sense for Tesla to um, give something to their early adopters of those vehicles. But I think it's people are taking it in a bad way too. If you've been waiting for 2 years and you also place your $1,000 deposit,
yeah, I mean, it basically comes down to if you are a Tesla owner or not a Tesla owner, and if you're not a Tesla owner, that sucks because some schmuck, some rich guy who's already got a Tesla walks up, picks up the phone and says, "Hey, I want a Model 3," and they get one in 3 weeks, and you're probably waiting another few months. I get it. Like that's not cool.
but there's a silver lining, I think, in that the fact that we learned that information is that they're probably running out of Tesla owners to give Model 3 to some Model 3s to. If you can just
I imagine a few are waiting for because they already own a Tesla, so they have like a Model S or a Model X, and either they're like, I'm just using my own example, but like they might be waiting for the 3500 or they might be waiting for the all-wheel drive one. So this is all the Tesla Model S and X owners who want this exact build, which is a long range
Premium interior.
premium interior, and the 6 colors. And I don't even know if you can get and the wheels. You can, whatever.
Yeah.
So there's still a lot of Tesla owners that haven't configured their Model 3 yet. I would say maybe half or more. I don't know.
Mhm.
So I don't know.
And I
Like,
think there's a lot of different kinds, like either groups of Tesla owners, like those that purchase the performance vehicle, for example. There's a core group that just keep purchasing the new top performance Model S. So
right.
those people just want the newest thing possible with all the option and everything. So those one, I'm not sure how the Model 3 will play into that. If they just want Model 3 because it's another Tesla and they're just huge fans, or it's not a performance car enough. But in my case, uh, I want the Model 3. I want an upgrade on my current Model S if I want a Model 3. So I don't want to downgrade for with buying a new cars versus my used Model S, and that means a longer range. So if I get the standard battery pack, I'll lose range versus my Model S. So that's not great. So I want the long range battery pack. I get a little bit range bump here. I like the all-wheel drive too. My Model S is even though it's a performance, technically it's a performance Model S. It's just an all-wheel drive. It was back when Tesla was making a rear-wheel drive performance Model S, and I also get the autopilot. I didn't have autopilot in my car, so if I get a Model, even though it's like technically less luxurious vehicle, it's actually less expensive too. I'm getting a significant upgrade if I exchange my Model S for a Model 3.
Yeah, I have to say, I made a trip from New York to Ohio and back last week. It's kind of the first time I've really used autopilot long term, and it really, obviously you don't want to take your eyes off the road for too long, but
Yeah.
it on long trips, if you're by yourself, it's really nice to, when you want to reach down and find some food or whatever you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to have that autopilot on. You reach down, you're looking around for something for a couple seconds. It's not Your car is not going to veer off into the side of the road.
Yeah, something that you would do anyway without autopilot, but now you feel more confident a little bit
Yeah,
more.
it's a lot safer to do
Yeah,
it with
but you should
the
still
car
pay
steering.
attention to the road, of course.
Yes.
But I'll try. I just want autopilot for the job too.
Yeah, I
'Cause
know.
I love reporting on autopilot and the progress and everything. And so any time that I can get into a Tesla as autopilot, which is pretty often, really, I love testing it. But if I have one and I can just put a lot of time in each new update and everything, that will be a lot of fun, and I can do that with my car right now. But yeah, I think that was an interesting update this week with that. But unless Tesla release the all-wheel drive soon enough, or expand to Canada, which was supposed to be for both mid 2018, unless those are coming really soon, I would assume that Tesla will open the configurator to non Tesla owners very soon. So keep an eye out for that. And
And how long do you think we have until the $7,500 credit is gone and we're down to 3,750?
yeah, so I talked to Tesla about that, but I wanted them to be more transparent about it, because they said that they would do that like a few quarters back in the shareholder letter, that they'd be open about the production process of the Model 3 and the ramp up and everything, and they haven't been bad about it. Like they do update us every quarter or so, um, but I think buyers in the U.S. It's very important for them, because a lot of people are factoring that into the car purchasing process, and Tesla wasn't willing to give us any information to try to get a better estimate. So we're just working with our own estimate again, and my own estimate right now places reaching the threshold in Q2. So hopefully it's late in Q2, but I don't see Tesla eating it late in Q2, unless the skew with the numbers, the production, and they start shipping in Canada sooner, which is likely now that we saw Tesla accelerating the expansion in Canada. So just a few weeks ago, it was supposed to be late 2018. Now it's mid 2018 if you get the all-wheel drive, which I think a lot of Canadians will get. Um, so of course, we don't know the numbers, so that's the problem. That's why we reached out to Tesla, wanted to get a better idea of the numbers. So just how many Model 3 reservations are there in Canada? Can it makes a difference? So can Tesla just focus deliveries in Canada for for like the second half or the second quarter, and just it that at the very beginning of Q3 instead of eating at Q2. So if they do that, then it's a perfect scenario. So if they manage to hold off until the whole Q2 by just fudging the numbers and not fudging numbers, but delivering in other markets instead of the US, then you have two full quarters. The entire 2018, there's no problem for the full tax rate, federal tax rate for the Model 3 or for any of this vehicle actually, because it still applied to Model S and X. And then the phase out period just happened in 2019 once the standard battery pack is already there. So people with the standard battery pack could still get the federal tax credit. But there are a lot of big if in that estimates for people. So just take that with a grain of salt, please. Don't put money on it. Like, you have to put money on it. But yeah, so we were
Yeah,
talking
so
about that.
I think going back to, the non-Tesla owners are a little bit upset because, theoretically they're buying a $35,000 car and they would be getting a $7,500 federal tax credit, but they just got pushed back to if they're getting the $35,000 base model, they got pushed back to 2019, and it's a lot less certain that the $7,500 is going to be available then. Probably won't.
Yeah.
So they not only got pushed back, 6 months or whatever in getting their vehicle, but they also got knocked down at, theoretically the vehicle price just went up,
Well, like I
price.
said, there's still hopes. Like you could still get the standard battery pack and non-owner standard battery pack with a $700 credit. But you should maybe, like we were talking about that before we started the show, like if maybe you weren't looking to have like the long range battery pack, then maybe with the tax credit, it sort of end up like having a cheaper long range for the same. Because if you still, I mean that logic only apply if you're still getting the car without the federal tax credit, but you end up going with um, fewer option, like not the long range battery pack, for example, which is a $9,000 option. So instead, you want to use the difference and buy it sooner with the long range and use the tax credit. So that's maybe a strategy I can look into. But yeah, it complicates things for a lot of people. And what complicates it more is that we actually don't know when Tesla's going to hit that threshold with that
So,
200,000.
here's a conspiracy theory. What if Tesla holds back sales just so they hit 1,009 or 199,999 until the end of a quarter, and then once the quarter is over, then they unleash a torrent of vehicles because they'll hit 200,000 that quarter, and that'll push them over.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like,
And that's a lot of cash from the federal government. That's $4,000 per car.
Yeah, well, either way, like I don't think they would hold the actual cars, because that's just too much inventory that's going to build up. But like I said, if they can expand like to Canada and just put the deliveries in Canada instead of the US, just to be able to wait until the quarters end in order to do that, that makes sense. But at that point, technically, because if that happens, in my mind, the way I modeled it, it would happen like in Q2, so they will wait like half into Q2 to do that, and then it will in Q3 they will start delivering the US to hit the 200,000 mark. But if they do that, they will already be at technically at high production rate. Right now, they think 5,000 a week. So if they have 5,000 a week and they still have Model S and X also in production, that's gonna be they're gonna go crazy for 2 quarters of the full 7,500 tax credits. And yes, it's gonna be a lot of money, but I don't think that they're gonna build up inventory for it. Maybe a little, but not like 100,000 cars or something.
Well, I mean, it would just be like it's another quarter of selling every car $4,000 cheaper. So it's a pretty big deal. Like if I'm running the numbers at Tesla, I'm like, let's try to hold off on hitting 200,000 until the very last the first day of some quarter. So like, for instance, the first day of quarter three, let's hit 200,000 right then, because then you have the whole rest of the quarter, then the extra, quarters, because that's basically when your wind down starts. Um,
Yeah.
that's to me, that's like something Tesla would do. Like
Yeah,
just
it
no,
makes sense to just to, it's a loophole that you have to exploit. I mean, it's
right?
there, it's there for that. And like they are the first that's gonna hit the threshold, so they're not, there's no model on how to do it perfectly. Like Nissan and GM are not far behind, but like right now Tesla's gonna try to do the best of it, and it's gonna give a good example for GM and Nissan to reproduce when they can. But that's where we are right now. What else? What else? Oh yeah, the Tesla crash, the Model 3 crash.
Yeah.
We had a new crash this week of the Model 3 that was interesting for a few reasons. The main reason is like it was a good example of the feedback loop that Tesla is pretty good at. Because the crash itself, we don't have that much information about it. It was posted by an anonymous Model 3 owner on Reddit. He posted a bunch of pictures and a few comments about what happened, but looks like there was a significant crash, front end collision at about 60 miles per hour in an intersection, and so there was the driver and a passenger, and the driver actually credited Tesla for like saving his life, or at least he says that the first responders, the paramedic, and everybody said it was lucky to be alive from the severity of the crash.
I thought he said he just had some foot injury.
Yeah, so he walked away from the thing, but he was his foot was a little bit hurt, and his passenger got caught from the screen. So that's what was interesting. So from he gave some feedback in that Reddit post. I'm gonna read it verbatim. My only complaint about this car is that during the crash, my passenger arms hit the screen and shattered it, which prevented me from opening the glove box with title and insurance. So as you may know, the only way to open the glove box on the Model 3 is through the screen. So Model S, you have like a button, a physical button next to the center screen. But for the Model 3, they decided to just go with the screen. And so after he posted that, Elon tweeted he took the feedback and he tweeted some possible fixes for those problems. He said that he's going to add software that will open the glove box automatically if there's a crash, and once the vehicle comes to a stop after a crash. I'm not sure it's already going to do that, but shouldn't be too difficult with software. And he said that he's going to look into bonding a thin plastic sheet to the front of the screen, the front or the back of the screen. Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. I didn't quite understand like the display he's talking about.
Yeah. That's my understanding. Like the passenger, she hit her hand on the display, and it shattered, and a piece of the glass cut her. But normally I thought that like most of those screens they don't shatter in big pieces
Yeah,
like
maybe
that.
like get some Gorilla Glass or something that the
Yeah,
smartphones use.
yeah. I don't see how that happens, and I thought that was already standard. But if it's not, apparently it's not. But at least what's impressive, like, is the short feedback loop. Like there's a crash, and the owner reports the crash on Reddit just a regular forum, and Elon just tweets about it and wants to implement solution right away. And Tesla's pretty good about that because of just the way they implement changes to the car right into the production line all the time. Like back we don't know right now about the Model 3, though there is changes we see with the service bulletins and stuff like that. But back in the days of the production ramp up for the Model S, like there were 20 changes a week or something like that. Just seeing efficiencies improvement and safety improvement just from.
Yeah, I think within a year they said that the Model S had lost like 200 pounds in weight of just
Mhm.
like lighter materials, making closer cuts, and it's pretty impressive. Like
Yeah,
200 pounds is a human, a fairly large human.
yeah.
Uh,
And then there were also safety improvement, like when Tesla, for example, introduced the titanium battery pack
right,
cover.
right.
Yeah,
That was
so
after a couple of battery puncture things.
Yeah, just people driving on the highway and then
They
driving
had
over
like a
something.
cinder block.
Yeah, there was a cinder block. That was the example that Tesla
Yeah,
used, like to they made a GIF out of it, which was cool, like just with the titanium plate running over it and breaking it. But I think the straw that break the camel's back was the guy that ran over like a stop sign, like the pole of a stop sign
right.
or any traffic sign that was on the highway, and it was just flipping the perfect angle that when he ran over it with the small s, it punctured the entire battery pack and came out of the on the other side in the passenger compartment. So that's not, and the car. I think the car caught on fire, or maybe not on fire, but like there was a problem with the battery pack, of course. But also a problem that it just completely went through, and it would have went through just a regular car too, like a conventional car. But and it's not like a regular thing that happens or running over that stuff on the highway. But Tesla fixed it pretty quick, and well, they haven't fixed this for the Model 3, so it's just Elon Musk saying that he's aware of it and they're planning fixes. But it's still interesting nonetheless, I think. Moving on, SpaceX. So yeah, just last week we had a ton of SpaceX news because of the Falcon Heavy launch. Now, still some relation to Tesla and the SpaceX world this week that we found out. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but besides just the rocket launch service and plans to colonize Mars that SpaceX is working on, they're also working on a satellite constellation to offer broadband internet service all around the world. And they've been working on that for a few years now. But this weekend, I think, yeah, it's the launch is this weekend, tomorrow, I think. They are launching the first two prototypes of those satellites for the constellation. So the constellation is going to be huge, like 12,000 satellites, something like that.
It was something like they're going to double the amount of satellites in space.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, easily.
something crazy. That seems like a big deal.
Mm-hmm. And the first two are going to be on, like, they're going to piggyback on another launch for HiteSat, the PAS satellite. So it's a Earth observation satellite, and they're going to piggyback on that launch. Is going to be a secondary payload, and they're going to test those satellites with ground stations. So that's where Tesla comes into play. There are 9 ground stations, and 5 of which are at SpaceX, just facilities all around the world. So SpaceX has, of course, is headquarters in Hawthorne in Los Angeles, but they also have a test center in Texas, and space launch, a commercial spaceports in Texas also. But the only other ground station that is not directly owned by SpaceX is going to be at Tesla's Fremont factory. You can make what you want of that, but of course, the big speculation is that Tesla's going to be somehow involved in the plans, like as a customer, probably like as a customer of the internet service. We don't know if that's actually in the plans, but that's the big speculation right now.
Of course, of course, every Tesla is going to have internet all over. They're paying AT&T currently, or in the U.S. and I think Rogers in Canada and everybody else for internet. Why wouldn't they just have SpaceX internet as part of their navigation as well plans? I mean, it just makes sense.
I don't know that. I'm not like well versed in that stuff, so I don't know if it's like technology feasible to have an internet a satellite internet connection that's viable, because Tesla's internet connection is very important in the cars, especially with those with autopilot. Like they need information very often, and we know that 4G is quite reliable right now. So it would have to be a very secured internet connection that doesn't drop momentarily or anything like that.
I mean, theoretically, it would be safer or more reliable because it's everywhere. You can be in the North Pole, you could be in the Sahara Desert, anywhere on Earth.
Yeah, the coverage would be wider. Yeah. Well, that's true, but that's true once like the full constellation is up there.
Right. No. I mean, I wouldn't imagine that Tesla cars are going to use it day one. Although maybe for testing. I don't know.
Yeah, so that's the presumption right now based on Tesla having a ground station in Fremont. Um, yeah, I'm not sure though how it helps with testing. Yeah, because what SpaceX is working on too is that's just like the test phase. They're gonna have a few satellites in space. They're gonna have a few ground station, but they're actually working on a user device to receive the signal. So that's gonna be a device like people have on their homes right now, and in region where I don't think we're like satellite internet right now is really popular outside of like deep in the country or something.
No, it's because it's crazy slow.
Versus
It's
cable.
the
Yeah,
Iridium satellite. It's like ISDN speed, which is like barely faster than those old telephone modems.
yeah. So that's
You
what.
they're good for phone calls, but and they're
Yeah, that's what
huge. Yeah.
SpaceX is selling right now is the fact that it's going to be much, it's going to be comparable to cable. That's my understanding. Like it's
Right.
going to be same ping time, same capacity
I
for.
don't know how they're going to do the ping time because like just speed of light, I guess, is and low latency electronics inside. I guess I don't know.
Well, like I said, it's not my wheelhouse at all. But like when I read into it, I think like the advantage is that the signal will travel faster in space in the vacuum of space. So the signal between satellites is going to be faster,
I don't think that's true. I think
but
radio
between
signals don't slow down in atmosphere. Sound does.
no
Uh,
versus like the way data travels in a cable in a fiber cable is apparently like I don't know the actual like is it millisecond, is it nanosecond, whatever, slower than it travels in space. That was the argument when they were presenting the
I always thought it was like
like
the electronics, like on the ends, like speed of light is constant, but when it's going through a router, it's got to be turned into electronic signals, and those have to be processed and
probably a bunch of people right now
packets.
that are listening
Yeah,
and they don't know what they're talking about, and you're
we
probably right. Yeah,
we don't on a very high level we have some understanding, but yeah,
yeah, yeah. There's no
actually we should probably
95,
look at the comments
95
here.
space yet. There's no 95 hour space yet.
Not yet,
No, we're
although
focusing on electric vehicles.
there's been requests. So that's actually that's a good thing to go to the comments right now. We got Matt Obadia, who's a great viewer. He's always asking questions. Any update on Chatamo working for Model S or Model 3? I don't
Yeah,
think we've had one. Theoretically, it should. I think it's just the handshake that's the issue.
yeah. I think that was just it's not a hardware issue; it's just a software issue, and it's probably not the high priority right now for Tesla. But I know that Tesla is working on adapters like more seriously because of there's a lot of demand, especially in Europe right now.
Yeah, I'd like to see a CCS adapter, or even better, like a CCS slash Chatamo adapter slash whatever is going on in China. It'd be really nice if
Yeah,
you could
that
just
well,
have
well,
everything.
you know what Tesla did in China though.
Yeah, they just put a big hole in the side of the car and put
Yeah, they
another
put a
adapter.
dual connector charge port instead. That was surprising when Tesla did that. Like, yeah,
Well,
uh,
what's kind of interesting is if you look at the input port on the Model 3, like there's plenty of room there for some other ports.
yeah,
So
it's not a problem. Like if well, yeah, it's a problem the way Tesla did it for the Model S in China because you can see it like the Model S is the charge port is so well hidden within the backlight the backlight, but now they just included a new charge port that you see within the body frame, which isn't as aesthetically pleasing as the original solution for the
yeah,
Model
certainly
S.
not. So
But
they thought ahead on the Model 3.
yeah, so a Model 3 could make easier sense. And if it's in there, if it's already in the same charge port, like you could put 5 different connectors there, and no one would care as long as you just not every time you want to plug. Oh, that's not the right plug. That's not the right hole and
You know what I don't
everything.
understand? Like no car has ever done this, but why don't they just have like a just a plug on a like an extension cord that on a kind of like a reel where you just pull it out and plug it in. Like when you're going to grandma's house or whatever, you don't have to deal with like the typical charge port. You just like pull out a
I've seen
cable,
the
plug it
I've
in.
seen the other way around. I've seen like that cable thing on the side of the charger of the connector itself, and then you plug it into a car. But you mean having that mechanism inside the car, and you
Yeah,
just pull it?
Yeah, just
Yeah,
right in there.
probably takes a lot of space, and
And there's probably some sort of
yeah,
electrical engineering problem that I'm not thinking of, where if it overheats or something, then there's got to be some
yeah. So if
fuse.
the cable is longer and then it's wrapped up, yeah, that's not ideal. And
All
it's
right,
just
so
also a space thing. I think it just take a lot of
all
space.
right, some more questions. Is Buffalo Gigafactory 2 getting solar?
No,
Uh,
it won't. It won't. It's just there's hydro. They're in Niagara Falls. There, I think they're
yeah,
getting hydro.
yeah. I
That's
think that was one
I
of the
get
reasons
that
for going
question
there.
all the time in Quebec. All the time, people are asking me, "Hey, how do I get solar in Quebec?" You don't want to get solar in Quebec. Like I know Hydro Quebec is increasing the rates right now, and people are freaking out and everything. But and I know it's bugging me too. I pay the same rate as you guys. It's bugging me, but it's still just a fraction of just what Set is paying, like
Yeah,
a few hundred miles from us in a first world country too. So. We can complain that they are increasing their price because they are a state owned company and everything. So we can complain all we want, but at the end of the day, we don't have another option because it's still not because they have a monopoly, which they do, but because there's no cheaper option right now. So as long
yeah.
as
So
that's
in
why,
Vermont, we just got an update. We're on a time of use, and if on the peak rates, it's over 20 cents per kilowatt hour,
yeah,
and the off peak is 11 cents per kilowatt hour.
yeah, so right now I think it's going up like some to 9 cents Canadian.
Canadian,
So
yeah.
like that's like 7 cents US. So it's less than it's almost a fourth of the price that you're paying. So it's really not expensive right now. But of course, it's the only thing we know. So every time that it increases, it pisses people off, and it's okay. But as long as the solar doesn't become like cheaper, and it will, but it doesn't make sense for us right now. And it doesn't make sense for other places that have like just cheap hydroelectricity, and that includes Buffalo. And I think that was actually one of the reasons why it wasn't Tesla, but back then the project was under Solar City and the startup that they bought, which I'm forgetting the name of right now. But that was a reason why they went there, and it makes sense. Any other question, or we go back
I'm
to
looking through. They're mostly just talking to each other. That's cool.
yeah, talk about each other all you
Complaining
want.
about taxes.
um, yeah, so we can move to the Roadster. So if you go to Electrek right now and you search for the Roadster, the first article is going to pick up. It's going to be Tesla bringing the Roadster to the HQ in Palo Alto, and that pretty much gave us our one of the best look at the Roadster since the unveiling. We got a bunch of pictures from our friend Casey Spencer. If you remember, Casey is the same guy that brought us some of the hypermiling world record for the Model S a few years back, and also the mind control Model S.
And I guess he got hired at Tesla for that, right?
Yeah. So apparently, we didn't know, but he worked at Tesla right now, and Tesla brought the Roadster at the HQ for employees to see it because right after the unveiling back in November when we were there, Seth and I. There was a big event, and there was a bunch of Tesla employees there too, but it was mainly for to talk to the owners and the media and stuff. But the next day there was an employee day, so the employees were able to see the car too and see the semi too. But that's still just only a fraction of Tesla employees seeing the car. So you have a new car that your company made, but the vast majority of employees never seen in person. So now they brought it to the HQ, which is interesting, and you get to see the car and see the special features like the steering wheel that and the main screen, which also is interesting for a lot of people. Like the way the screen is incorporated into the dash and into the center console, which is really cool.
I think
What
they
you
took
don't see still is the
the
back
steering
seat, though.
wheels
Yeah,
the steering wheels directly from Knight Rider. Like it's the exact same steering wheel,
yeah, pretty
except it
much, right?
doesn't have the guns.
The thing that you don't see it too because there was a rope all around the car. You couldn't get too close. It's the back seat. Everyone's gonna want to know about the back seat, but we never had a great look at it.
No, I know.
Uh,
I'm really curious.
yeah, because even when Tesla gave test drive and said you got a test drive and everything, it was dark and you get a few seconds in the car and you couldn't see much. But there's apparently a decent size back seat, which is surprising a lot of people, including myself.
When you say decent, does that mean an adult can fit in there,
That's
or is it?
Elon was saying. Like the only information we have about it was what Elon was saying at the unveiling, and he claimed that two adults could fit that there, but a lot of people are skeptical.
Like two adults in an emergency or like normally?
Well, I think the main thing he said was like a family could go on a trip and like you fit two kids back there,
Right.
two adults on the front, and you can still have some place for some room for luggage. Moving on, yeah, that's always bothering me. Tesla's fighting for direct sales in the US. So every month or so, I write a few articles about that stuff because I think it's important since it's slowing down the rollout of electric vehicles in the US in a major way in some places. And with the legislative sessions with the new year's coming, like a few legislative sessions, the Edinburgh states are starting. So Tesla is like doing a new push for direct sales simultaneously in a few different states at the same time. So I wrote sort of a summary of each state because in the last few weeks, bills were introduced in New York. Of course, Tesla can sell cars in New York right now, but they are limited to 5 stores because it wasn't legal for them to sell car directly with company-owned dealerships. But they struck a deal with the state and they allowed them to have 5 locations, but they have now completely outgrown those 5 locations and they need more. So they are pushing for new deals, not to outright allow direct sales, which would be the common sense thing to do, in my opinion, but instead they will increase the compromise to 20 store, which I think is not bad for Tesla in New
Yeah,
York.
I mean, 20 stores is quite a few. I think, so some neighboring states like Connecticut, they really want to get stores in. And I know my store, which is Mount Kisco, gets tons of people from Connecticut because they got all the, the stockbrokers who are doing the low tax thing in Connecticut. So like they could put one right on the Connecticut border if, Connecticut never comes around. And that would be quite good. I'm sure they would love to have one like in Rye.
They need to
And
put
then
5 upstate too. That's part of the deal. Out of the
yeah,
15 new store, 5 needs to be upstate.
right. I mean, Buffalo, Schenectady. What else is up there?
Albany, is it considered upstate now?
Yeah,
Albany?
Albany. Albany's the capital. Rochester.
Yeah, Rochester's supposed to have one too. So yeah, that's coming, and Connecticut. A bill wasn't introduced yet, but it is expected to in the current legislation. So a new bill in Connecticut is going to be pushed too. But Tesla just had a hard time in Connecticut, like 4 years in a row. First 3 years didn't work. Now it's going to be the 4th years that they're going to try to push legislation, and yeah, the problem too is that like in Texas, for example, they still have the same issue. They cannot sell car directly, but they can still deliver them. Like the actual purchase process goes through a Tesla store in another state, but you can still get delivery like at your house or at work or whatever. You can't do that in Connecticut, so that's why like Mount Kisco, like you said, is seeing a lot of traffic from them because you actually have to go to another state to take delivery and then bring the car in the state and register it there.
Which we can say like this is crazy. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy. It's crazy that that they have to do this. This is an American car company selling clean vehicles. It like to me it's bad. It blows my mind that
There's no argument for it at all. Like there's no argument that makes sense. The only reason why it's the case is because the dealership have a monopoly on car sales and they want to keep that monopoly, and they have enough influence at the legislative level to keep that monopoly. That's the only reason. So it's not nefarious. It's not illegal. It's all legal, but it's an influence on the political process that is very successful.
I mean, if our federal government wasn't such a circus, I would be like all over this. But like, I've got so much energy, like, like just losing my mind every
That's the
day
thing.
over
The
that.
federal government already weighed in on that. Like the FTC, I want to say like 2 or 3 years ago, weighed in on the issue. Tesla that they had hearings and everything. Tesla presented at their hearings. The dealership association presented at their hearings. A few other automakers did, like GM and everything. And they heard everybody's side of the issue, and they made it clear like that doesn't make sense. It should be allowed to Tesla should be allowed to compete. They don't have a franchise dealership, so the competition is completely fair. But that's the thing. The FTC said they don't have a power on per state to implement any law at that level. So it's staying a per state issue. And speaking of per state issue, other legislation that's going on right now for direct sell are in Utah. Tesla's getting another push in Utah with a new bill introduced just this week. New Mexico 2 weeks ago, but some readers just informed me that the legislative session in New Mexico is like crazy short, and the bill was introduced like last minute, and 2 days later it was dropped because there was no time to walk it through the entire process to get a vote on. So that was just like Tesla testing the waters with the bill, and it's gonna have to go next year. So if you're a Model 3 reservation holder in New Mexico, don't expect to have an easy way to get your car this year. Well, you can still probably get it, but like it's gonna be like the same issue that you have in Connecticut and or Texas and those places. Oklahoma got a new bill this month, or this month. Wisconsin last month got a new bill, and that's pretty much it. Might be a few others too that Tesla is currently pushing, but I'm not aware of all the efforts separately. There's Michigan too. That's always an issue, but Tesla just gave up on the on going through the political process, and instead is in court
Judicial.
right now.
Yeah,
Judicial process instead. You're suing the state. There's no update on that yet. It's still it's going to be a long process, so we don't expect any news on that anytime. Well, there's going to be a ton of news that's going to come out of the actual lawsuit in court, but I mean the decision is not going to come out, I think, for a while, and neither side seem to be ready to settle on it. So of course, what if you're asking yourself what you can do about it? There isn't much other than talk to your local legislator, local representative, and let him know what you think about the situation in a polite way, of course, even if you find it that it's very stupid,
repulsive.
Yeah, and show up to the hearing. So normally there's a hearing about the bill being presented, and of course you know that dealerships are going to show up to the hearing. So it's always nice to have a counterpart to it with the counter argument. But is that enough Tesla news for the week? We're always like 50 minutes into the podcast, and I've only talked about Tesla basically. But they generate more news in the EV world, that's for sure. So there's not much way around it. The other thing that wasn't Tesla related that I wanted to talk about in the podcast was Porsche, because what we've seen from Porsche over the last month or so is that they've been pushing a lot of PR stuff. So they've been sending us a lot of PR press release, press media content and stuff like that about electric vehicles. So it looks like they're really they want to stay in the news when it comes to EVs because they're launching, of course, the Mission E next year, and they seem to be really want to sell electric powertrains to their motorhead fans, because of course Porsche is really it's really big in the gearhead world. And this week they released a long essay, a long blog post about just how great electric vehicles are. Basically, it was a love letter to electric vehicles, basically, and with a few side notes, of course. And but the takeaway, I think, from and you can read it on we have a link on Electrek. If you search Porsche right now, it's going to be the first thing that's going to come up. And they really trying to sell you the performance advantage of an electric powertrain. Of course, the quick acceleration, but also they're trying to minimize any kind of difficulty someone will have with charging, for example, because that's always the big thing when someone is switching from gas to electric vehicles. Oh, I'm gonna charge. Is it gonna be difficult to charge and everything? They're trying to make that as easy as possible. Of course, Porsche is selling its own residential chargers, but they're also investing heavily into public fast charging station with the Ionity and charging network in Europe, and indirectly electrify America in the US. But like I said, I'm fairly optimistic about Porsche's electric vehicle push for a few reasons, but just their own forecast that they were making, like the 50% production of electric vehicle within 6 years by 2022. That's big in my opinion, because like no other automakers, established automaker, like legacy automaker, is aiming for that high of a production. They're all talking about 25% and such. And I think 50% is still too low by that point, but it's still ahead of any other automaker. So they are more aggressive than any other maker, I think. And yeah, and the mission E looks just insanely cool. So I think they're pretty serious about it. But I thought it was interesting to note just how much PR stuff they're singing out about EV right now. I don't know what you think about it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm more excited about the charging technology because they have these very high expectations, and Tesla's been kind of stuck at 120 kilowatts for a while. So I'm ready for the space race of charging speed to happen.
Yeah. Do you think Tesla's gonna come out with something just to beat them by?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of just like, having just done this Ohio trip, stopping at, obviously when I'm driving fast, a little bit over the speed limit, mileage goes down. When it's negative, it's like 10 degrees or in the single digits, range goes down. So I was stopping at pretty much every supercharger along the way, and obviously being a little quicker would be nice. But I don't know if the 18650 battery technology is the limiting factor, or what's the limiting factor, because even at the 120 kilowatt stations and with a 90 kilowatt hour battery, you only get the full 120 kilowatts for a few minutes, and then it starts to slowly trickle down. And by the time you're at 50%, you're usually under 100 kilowatts. And then, by the time you're at 60, 70%, you're already at 50 kilowatts, which is what CHAdeMO and CCS stations typically offer. So
yeah,
you only get that fast charge when you're pretty much, when you're pretty low on charge.
That's why sometimes you're better off just not charging at 100% and just stopping by the next one and still be like limiting at 50% or something. And if you know you're doing long distance, it makes sense to plan for that.
We should do a post on like, long distance charging technology. Basically, you want to roll into the charging station empty, and then you want to charge as low as possible, and then you want to charge enough to get to the next charging station, or as far as you can go.
If you're doing that with the Bolt, though, you gotta be careful. You know what I learned this week?
No,
it was interesting. Is that if you pull in with zero charge, or like the battery pack is depleted, you cannot charge at a fast charging station. The only thing,
right? That's that Facebook post, right?
No, it wasn't on Facebook, but. Well, maybe it was. No,
I shared something in the Slack channel about a guy on Facebook who was specifically testing this. It was cold, and he pulled in and he had to charge with a level 2 because he wasn't able to charge at the CCS station he was at.
Yeah,
and basically he could reach like the cable from a separate charger. He had to reach over, charge it like to 5% or something.
Yeah, and what I heard is that's not a bug. That's a feature. That's how it works.
It's a feature.
Well, it's not a feature, but it's how it works. It's like it's not.
Yeah.
It's not a bug. GM doesn't plan to change it or anything.
Yeah.
So if you're planning a trip, normally you don't arrive at 0%. It's pretty much impossible. But sometimes, I mean, if you park at a charger and you're not charging, and then you end up at 0% and you were just planning on plugging in, then you have an issue with it. But I don't think that's going to be a big problem.
I think it would be a problem if you you ran out of juice and you got a flatbed and they took you to a charging station.
Yeah,
and you're like,
that's a more plausible scenario.
Right.
Cedric says, didn't Elon comment about upcoming charging speed? The suggestion as a child's toy. Yeah, that was a while ago though.
I feel like that was in relation to the mega chargers on the truck.
No, that was back when I tweeted. I tweeted
Right.
him about increasing charge rate, and he tweeted back about supercharger V3. And then I asked him, "Hey, well, what's that supercharger V3?" That's the first time we asked about it. And then he said, "Oh, it's coming up. It's coming up soon." And then I asked about the charge rate. Is it? And I referred to the ultra fast that people are talking about, which is 350 kilowatts.
350, right?
350. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what Porsche is referring is calling the ultra fast, and he referred to that as a child's toy. So meaning that he's gonna be faster. Then the mega charger came up for the Tesla Semi, which is clearly over 350 kilowatt, which would make sense with that comment. But he
I think it's
wasn't
close
talking
to a
about.
megawatt, right?
Yeah, it has to be over a megawatt according to our calculation. But um, supercharger V3 implies that it's just an iteration of the supercharger, and it's going to be used by the vehicles and Tesla Semi. I don't even think if Tesla Semi was announced back then. So it didn't make sense. I think it was clear that we were talking about a charge rate for the cars. That's what we want right now. It's not that Tesla Semi is not cool or anything, but we want a higher charge rate for the cars.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is to get it down to gasoline time, and the transfer of energy of gasoline going into your car, which 5 minutes would probably be a nice fill up
Yeah.
time.
Though to be fair, like 350 kilowatts, if Porsche can really do that, that's pretty much it. I mean,
Yeah, that's it.
it's game at that point. It's already game over for gas, I think.
Right.
So people can just work around the fact that it's 15 minutes instead of 5 minutes. Like it's because that's a big, I think, technological improvement. If you go from 15 to 5 minutes, like it's a big leap to do. I think 15 minutes is already okay for most people.
I agree, but I think it's going to be kind of a letdown to know that you get 350 kilowatts at the beginning, but by the time you're like a quarter
Yeah.
full, it's already down to 100.
Yeah.
And people are gonna be like, well, that's not as good. So we'll see what the bottom line is.
But then you get like the Roadster, the new Roadster with a 200
Right.
kilowatt hour battery pack, and even at 350, it's like it's like 45 minutes to charge if you can maintain that charge rate all the way through. But with a car like that, you don't even keep it 100%. Like you never keep it 100%. You keep it like at 50% all the time, basically.
Yeah, I would like to do like a cannonball run with that. Then that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, like 3 charges. Can you do three
I
and a
mean,
half?
that's if you kind of hang out at the speed limit, which I imagine would be almost impossible to do with that car.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So anything else?
No, I think that's pretty much. Well, a few questions. Do we have a few more questions for the comments? What if each model of the Model 3 can take 120 kilowatts? Matt has.
Each battery module.
Yeah, but they're like already like there are 3 modules.
I think they're already splitting the modules up there. So I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah, because we know that like it's likely for the mega charger and the Tesla Semi that's gonna be split, or like it's gonna be different connections, but that's on the connector side too. It's not just on the battery module side.
Right.
We're gonna definitely look into that though.
Yeah.
There's really a lot of things that we don't understand for sure yet about Tesla's new battery technology for the next generation with the Roadster and the Tesla Semi and the mega charger that comes with it. Because
maybe we should go to the Gigafactory.
Yeah, we're trying to go to the Gigafactory soon and maybe try to find a few more information for you guys and report back. We're gonna race also the Tesla Semi. When are we gonna do that?
That'll be fun.
Yeah, we're supposed to do that sometime soon. But thanks a lot for joining us, guys, and thanks to our Patreon supporters for making it possible. We have now over 200 Patreon supporters, and we appreciate each and every one of you guys. You make this possible, not only the podcast, but you help out also for the website and our articles that we publish every week. If you feel like contributing, please do, and we'll be back next week as usual. Have a good one.